Good evening, everyone. This evening is the 2024 Memphis Bonding Education Program Joint Ventures webinar. Mr. T. Kevin Bruce, attorney with the Bruce Law PLLC, is our facilitator today, September the 5th, 2024. Class at 6 to 8 p.m. That's Central Time. I'm Beth Barner, Project Director, MSA, Mid-South Atlantic Small Business Transportation Resource Center. We have Mr. Lawrence Broader Parker, Project Director with the Tennessee MBDA Business Center. He will do the introduction of the MMBC and the Tennessee MBDA. He will do the roll call and speak on homework, along with myself. We'll speak on homework. Mr. T. Kevin Bruce will begin his presentation on joint ventures, as one of our students calling now. And we have questions and answers and homework assignment. Okay, next, Mr. Lawrence will speak on who our stakeholders are.
Good evening, everyone. Here you have a picture of all of our stakeholders. They have participated throughout this entire program. We appreciate the collaboration with everybody pictured here on this slide here. And I have already started to check names off. Look like we have Brandy, Aiden, and Madison here for tonight for building construction management. And next up, we're gonna kick it back off to Miss Betty. Here also from MMBC, we have Miss Melba Chester from MMBC, our Director of Core Development and Training. Miss Betty, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm up here speaking to one classmate. She cannot get in. Brandy, you had no problem getting in, right?
No, ma'am, I didn't, but I tried to use the first link that was,
Pardon me?
Hold on. No, ma'am, I did not. I tried to use the first link that was sent out and couldn't get in from that because I had that problem the last class.
So the first link did not work, you're saying?
Yes, it was the second email that was sent out with the link.
The second email she says worked, not the first one, Vantina. Brandy,
I will find the email and forward it to Vantina.
That's what she asked for you to do. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. All right. So they said the first one wasn't working. I wonder why. I thought they all were the same. No?
I tried to get in last weekend with Ms. Melba through my computer because my phone was in and out and I couldn't get in. I sat in the waiting room for a while. Finally, I gave up.
Oh, wonder what. So that's what's happening. I wonder what else is going on. That may be the problem.
I don't have Vantina's email.
Okay, let me forward it to me and I'll
forward it to her. Okay, I got it.
Forward the email you have and I'll forward it to her.
Oh, Madison Fauci sent it to me too.
So I wonder if that's why the other people are not getting in. That very first one. Because if you had
I believe there were one or two on Tuesday and there was no meeting. So I guess they assumed it was over. Right.
Schedule said the 5th. Okay. The 2024 Memphis BEP participation requirements were to complete the client intake form. Somebody's waiting. Let's see. It's a message. And class participation, 100% of the class is necessary to attend. You can miss 2 classes. And when you miss 2 classes, you can make them up by watching the video and submitting a homework assignment. Oh, Lamont, he just tried to come in. And then at the end of this phase 1 is a final survey completion. What and then the second phase is the prescriptive plan one-on-one counseling session. So what we are going to do, Mr. Joe Jackson, it will be in Memphis on September the 11th and September the 12th. Lawrence, for the
2024 Economic Development Forum.
2024 Economic Development Forum. And on those 2 days, he have set aside times to meet with you guys individually to make sure that you are able to get your certificate of completion. On Wednesday, September the 11th, he is available from 9 a.m. to noon. It's 30 minutes interval meetings with each person. And on Thursday, September the 12th, from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. This is at the Sheraton Conference Center downtown. And I will send you the link so that you could self-register yourself. And that link is good until Tuesday. After that, you got to call me personally because it's still valid until Tuesday. Again, Mr. Joe Jackson will be in Memphis on September the 11th and September the 12th to meet with you guys individually for make up any sessions that you have missed, and to counsel you on that and counsel you on completing the client intake form. Anyone who has not, everyone should, but for some reason we'll double check. And also he would do a preliminary prescriptive plan assessment. So anybody want to get started on that early, they can meet with him individually. And the preliminary prescriptive plan is you rank your top 5 areas of need that you would like further counseling in, of the sessions that we all had. When you rank those 5 classes, we will, if we get enough more of one particular topic, say, here we are ventures today. If we have like more than 5 or have 6 people, 7 people who want some area to be counseled further in that, we will go ahead and have another session. Mr. Bruce will come back. If it's only a few who want that, we would have Mr. Bruce to talk with you individually in that area. But you're going to rank 5 of the areas from other classes that we've had that's important to you, that you need more counseling areas in. And I will go over the classes again. Now, first class was safety. Second was business planning and construction management. Third was construction accounting and financial management. Fourth, bonding and insurance. Fifth, marketing, estimating, and bidding. Sixth, project management, field operations, claims and disputes resolutions. 7, banking and financing for transportation-related small businesses. Got one more way coming, good. Then we have DBE, contract compliance, Davis-Bacon, wage, payroll, and on-the-job training, that session. Managing growth, why some small businesses succeed and others fail, and teaming. And today we are having joint venture. So of all those classes, I want you to rank the 5, those sessions. You got the email. I will send you another email asking for you to rank them on the need that you would like further counseling on. And that's how we'll go on for individual counseling for you all. Is that clear? Raise your hand if anybody have a question. Again, for those who came in late, on September the 11th and September 12th, Mr. Joe Jackson will be in Memphis to do individual counseling for you to look at the video that you missed for your absence, make up classes, and he can help you complete your client intake form. That's the Sheraton Conference Center downtown, Memphis. Wednesday, the 11th, from 9 a.m. to noon, Thursday, the 12th, 1 to 3 p.m. And I will send a link out, an email regarding this, and a link so that you can self-reserve the slot that's best for you, 30-minute intervals, and also the preliminary early prescriptive planning assessment. So got that out the way. Everybody understand that? If not, you can contact me and we will go to, I hit the wrong thing. We have Mr. T. Kevin Bruce will speak on joint ventures, and now Mr. Lawrence will take the role. Right?
I already have the role. I'll add Mr. Wooten to it.
You've already done the role.
Mhm.
Okay, I've done that.
trucking
Now
in there?
Yes,
Pardon
and
me?
I'll add you to the trucking in there too as well.
Thank you.
So
You're
we have
welcome.
Mr. Lamont Harris came on, Miss Vantina Durham, Mr. Wooten came on, and Miss first one in the class, almost every day, Miss Brandy. That's what we have tonight. So I will stop sharing my screen and let Mr. Bruce start.
All right, let me start sharing my screen. And share, okay. Let me make sure you guys are looking at the screen that says at the top, joint ventures, expanding your possibilities. Is that what you see?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Well, good evening. I am Kevin Bruce. I am an attorney with Bruce Law here in Memphis, Tennessee. And I am here tonight to share a little bit with you about joint ventures. Our topic tonight, of course, is joint ventures. And it is, as Ms. Barner explained, and we're going to talk about, just give you some basic information about joint ventures that might help you to expand the possibilities of your business. A little bit about me. I'm not going to go through all this, but yeah, I'm practice law with Bruce Law PLLC. My law practice consists primarily of business transactions, real estate. I also do some estate planning, that's wills and trusts, and do some public finance, that is helping municipalities and government entities with their bond issues. I have, in my career, I've tried to focus on a law that is related to business and finance. And have some experience with joint ventures myself. I've done joint ventures in my law practice. I've also been a participant in businesses that have done joint ventures with other businesses, as as a business owner, a part business owner. And of course, I've helped many clients negotiate and put together joint ventures. So I'm going to use some of that experience tonight to try to share with you a little bit some things that might be helpful to you. The agenda for tonight, so you can know where we're going. I'm going to try to talk about these 6 topics, and we'll see how time permits. But the first thing I'm going to talk about are benefits and challenges of joint ventures. Just like everything in life, there are pros and cons. There are benefits, and then there are risks. So there's good and bad. Going in, I want you to go into joint ventures with your eyes open, understanding that they can indeed be beneficial to you, but there also are some risks and challenges that you'll face. And if you know what they are, then you can prepare for them. Then after that, I'm going to talk about some attributes of successful joint ventures. Not all joint ventures are successful. And based on my experience, I have put together a list of some characteristics that I think the successful joint ventures tend to have. So as you're putting your joint venture together, these are the things that you want to look for to give you the best chance of success. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how you select a joint venture partner. What kinds of things do you look for? Then Then we'll talk about structuring your joint venture, and we'll take a break. I'll probably start talking about structuring your joint venture, but before we get into the substantive part, we'll take a quick break and come back and talk about the structural, the substantive detail of how do you structure your joint venture. Then we'll talk about the joint venture agreement. If you're entering a joint venture with another company, I strongly recommend that you have an agreement that documents your understanding so you don't have any problems later. And we're going to talk about some things that agreement ought to have, that a good joint venture agreement will have in it. And then finally, I'll hit on some quick points on how to govern or manage your joint venture once you start. So that's the agenda for the night. Those are the things that we're going. Those are the places we're going. So let's start with benefits and challenges. First of all, why should you use a joint venture? What are the benefits of it? What are the reasons that you might decide to use a joint venture? Well, one reason you might use a joint venture is to scale up the size of your business for servicing a contract that your company alone might be too small to handle. Sometimes you get contract, maybe if you're a contractor, you have a bond limit. And it could be that the project that you're going after is beyond your bond limit. So maybe by partnering with somebody, you can work on that project anyway, despite the limitation of your bond. Or maybe it's just you don't have enough people, enough manpower to do it. You can take on bigger projects if you work with somebody than if you try to do it yourself. So a joint venture helps you to take on bigger projects. Another reason that you might use a joint venture is to obtain additional resources and skill sets that your business doesn't have. Maybe you see a project that you've got you can do everything that's required of the business, except it requires some electrical work, and you don't have anybody in your business that has the skill set or the licenses to do that. You can do everything else, but there's that one part or a couple of parts that you cannot do. So the way you get around that, well, you partner with another business who does have that skill set. So a joint venture helps you to get access to resources or skill sets. Resources might be equipment. It could be skill sets of people. It could be equipment. It could be just knowledge and experience. But you get access to resources and skill sets that you don't have. Another reason that you might do a joint venture is to integrate components of your business. Integrate into things that you don't have. I mean, if I had a client once who sold office products, but had an opportunity for some business, but they had to be a manufacturer to do that. Well, they can sell it, they can distribute it and sell it, but in that sales process, they were not able to manufacture it. So they partnered with a company that did manufacture, and now they could do it from manufacturing to distribution, to final sales to the customer. They were able to cover that whole process. Maybe you want to maybe you can use a joint venture to partner with somebody without giving up control of your business or autonomy of your business. So your business might do a variety of different, have a variety of different services, and you want to remain autonomous for most of them, but you want to partner with somebody on one of them. So a joint venture can be set up where they can help you with just that one part of your business. And so you got a joint venture partner that you got to answer to and make decisions with and coexist with there, but the rest of your business is separate and you still have autonomous control of the rest of your business. So a joint venture is a way to accomplish that, to partner with somebody for one aspect of your business while retaining autonomy over the rest of it. And then another reason you might want to joint venture with somebody is, maybe it's a business that you are considering merging with or acquiring, you're doing an acquisition so that your two businesses become one. Well, before you do that, a joint venture is a good way to really see if you really want to be in business with them. You work with them on a small project as opposed to biting the bullet and really combining your business. You work with them to see before it's too late. I call that the date before you marry reason. So you work with them and kind of test the waters and see if it's all right before you merge or acquire them where it's too late, where you become one. So those are some reasons that you would do a joint venture. Those are some benefits of a joint venture. I mean, well, those are some reasons. Those are some reasons why you would do a joint venture. So some of the benefits you get from a joint venture: geographic expansion. Your offices in your facilities are in one city. I I worked in a law firm once where well where there was a bigger firm, a big law firm in Louisville, Kentucky, that decided, you know what, we really want to be in the Memphis market. How do we get into the Memphis market? Well, we could go and open up a new office. That means we got to sign a new lease agreement and commit to all of that money for that. We got to go hire all new people from scratch. We got to furnish the office. We got to do everything from scratch. And that costs money, including getting new people. Or an easier way is, why don't we just do a joint venture with a law firm that's already in Memphis? And so I was part of that firm. That Louisville firm partnered with the firm here in Memphis as a joint venture, and that way the firm got into the Memphis market without having to invest a lot of dollars to do it. So they expanded geographically, and eventually they did merge, but that was a way of them expanding into a new market without spending the money to do that. So you can do that with your business, going to a new city by joint venturing with somebody that's already there, as opposed to starting from scratch. Another benefit of joint ventures is to get access to greater resources. You have the resources in your business. Resources might be financial, talk about manpower and skill sets. It might be equipment, it might be expertise, or whatever. You have what you have in your business, but by joint venturing with another business, you can access their resources in addition to yours. Then another reason is sharing of risk. Maybe you're taking on a big project, and there's a lot of risk involved. I mean, if you lose, you have to invest a lot of money, to take on the project. That's risk. There's money that you could stand to lose if things don't work out well. Well, if you partner with somebody, maybe you say, well, hey, you make 50% of the investment, and we'll make 50% of the investment. Well, you've shared the risk. You'll lose. You stand to lose less because the risk is spread out among both companies. Now, the benefit, the profits will be spread out too, but you can share the risk. And the risk might not be money; it might be other kinds of risk, some type of liability risk. But if there's risk associated with whatever it is you're trying to undertake, by partnering with somebody, you can share that risk with them, and you won't have to bear all the risk. You reduce the amount of risk that your company shares. Of course, joint ventures helps you to expand your relationships. You get to work closely with another company, and not just that company, but yeah, you have all of your relationships, the people that you know, the customers you know, your suppliers, and all your professional services, lawyers, accountants, whatever. But when you partner with somebody, you get access to all of their relationships too, their suppliers, and maybe they've got suppliers that are better, can provide supply you at a better cost, but you get access to all of their relationships as well as your own. And then another benefit is credibility. So you might be a company that people don't know. You're still small. You haven't maybe you haven't done things at a large level. Well, by partnering with a big company that is a bigger company that's well known, now when you pursue an opportunity, it's not just your reputation your credibility that you're limited to. Now, because you're coming in as a partner with them, you don't have to deal with that credibility issue. Because your partner has credibility, you get the benefit of it and don't have to, build that credibility yourself. So those are some of the benefits that a joint venture can give you. But like we said earlier, Everything in life has good and bad. Every person I know has some good in them, but they also got some bad in them too. Everything good and bad. So in addition to risks, there are, in addition to benefits, there can be some challenges. There are some challenges that you might face in a joint venture. Hit some of these real quick because these are coming to play later on as we start talking about that joint venture agreement and issues that you need to deal with in your joint venture agreement. Number one, when you enter a joint venture, you relinquish your autonomy, your control. Not all of it, but some of it. Your joint venture partner will have to have a say in what's going on. To some, you can talk about how much, who has how much control, but still, to some extent, sometimes more, in some cases more than in others, you will have to answer to them, and they'll have to answer to you. So you can't just go do whatever you want to do when you want to do it, how you want to do it, the way you feel like. You've got a partner to answer to. So you give up your autonomy, some of your control. Next, you're dependent on your joint venture partner. As a lawyer, I've worked on a project where I handled one aspect of what we were doing for our client, and my partner handled the other. So if they did a poor job, I'm not in control of that. I'm dependent on my partner, my joint venture partner, to do a good job at what they do. Okay, because they're handling that. And if they do a poor job, that's a reflection on all of us. I have to count on them to do what they're supposed to do. Maybe I can step in and fix it, but still, you are dependent on your partner to do what they're supposed to, and your partner's dependent on you to do what you're supposed to. So if you don't handle your end of the bargain, it doesn't hurt just you. Now you're hurting somebody else. So there's a pressure to make sure you perform, and you need your joint venture partner to perform. Next, there's a sharing of resources. You might have some personnel in your business that you're used to doing work for you. Well, now that personnel has to divert some of their time and attention to doing things for the joint venture, doing things that benefit your partner, so you don't have exclusive use of their time. Or it might be equipment that you have that you're using for a certain purpose, and now you've got to use it for the joint venture. So you've got to share. It might be money too. You might have to invest money, dollars, but you've got to share in space. It might be your space in your facility, your office, or your factory, warehouse, or wherever. You've got to share your resources with the joint venture and with your joint venture partner. Now they presumably will be sharing something of theirs, but you will have to share some of your resources. Next, of course, income will be shared. We talked on the last screen. A benefit is that you get to share the risk, but the flip side of that is, if you're sharing the risk, you also have to share the income. Then there's also the risk of potential disputes between the joint venture partners. You might disagree with them on something. How do you deal with it? You're going to disagree with them. Anytime two human beings interact with each other, at some point, you're going to disagree about something. That's just the way it is. So how do you have to be prepared for that. Then it might be, different business cultures. How do I say, I don't want to disparage anybody, but I remember doing a joint venture with a company once where, our employees were always at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. They took a 1-hour lunch and they worked. Well, the company that we did the joint venture with, well, their folks kind of showed up, 8 or 9-ish. They show up when they get there. For lunch, they just be gone however long they feel like it. They'll come back when they, it wasn't as strict. So they took longer lunches, and that became a problem. Our employees working with their employees saw them and how lax they were, and it made our employees want to have that same relaxed attitude, and that became a problem. So that can be a problem with your joint venture partner. If you have different different ways of doing business, different cultures, and work environments, that clash can be an issue. And then, of course, finally, there's a loss of privacy and confidentiality. If it's just your company, then what you do is internal to your company. But now you work with a joint venture partner, they get to see some of the stuff that otherwise would have been private or confidential. So those are some challenges that you have to be prepared to deal with. And after tonight, hopefully you will have, just there's some things that you can do to minimize the risks from those challenges. You can't eliminate them all the way, but you can do some things in your joint venture agreement to minimize them. Now this screen is I think this is important. I really kind of wanted to put this at the end so I could highlight it, but it just fits better here. So let me go through this. This is based on my experience dealing with joint ventures, being a party to joint ventures, being an attorney who helped put joint ventures together over the years. Some joint ventures are more successful than others. And so I kind of looked at the ones that have been successful and made a list of the qualities that I think they have. So if you know what those qualities are on the front end, you can try to, to have those qualities in your joint venture. So first one is an agreed upon and commonly understood strategic purpose. The why. Okay, why are we forming this joint venture? What's our purpose? What's the purpose of the joint venture? If the parties are joining for the same, they have the same purpose in mind. They understand this is the goal. This is what we're trying to accomplish. You have a better chance of succeeding. When companies join, into a joint venture and they have different objectives, at some point there's going to be tension. And some decision that you have to make. One company is going to want to make the decision one way because that's what gets them to their purpose. The other company with a different purpose is going to decide something differently. And so you're going to have a problem. So if the companies enter it with the same strategic purpose, the purpose behind the joint venture, you have a better chance to succeed. Second is an agreement on the front end regarding how the joint venture will operate. Okay, that is, who's going to make how are we going to make decisions? What's the process for making decisions? Okay, who's going to invoice the client or the customer? How are we going to share the profits? How's the work going to be allocated? What are you responsible for doing? What is my company responsible for doing? So having an agreement on the front end about all of those things, about how the joint venture will work, gives you a much better chance of succeeding than if you're just forming a joint venture. You'll figure it out as you go along. Next, this one is important, I think. The profits of the joint venture need to be shared in a way that is somewhat proportional to the contributions that the joint venture partners are making to the joint venture. What do I mean by that? If I enter a joint venture with your company and we just agree on the front end because we just trying to rush and get into it, we say, well, we'll split the profits 50-50. But we get into the joint venture and you find out that, wait a minute, I'm doing 80% of the work. That doggone Kevin Bruce, he ain't doing but 20%. So why I got to split the money 50-50 when I'm doing 80% of the work? You're not going to be very happy about that. And so there's going to be a problem. So it takes time to really deal with this on the front end. But if you can have conversations about what value is each of the partners to the joint venture bringing to the table, and how does it compare to what the other one's bringing, and come to some agreement on that, and then make sure that you split profits in a way that's close to that, then your joint venture will have a better chance to succeed. Now that can and does lead to some difficult conversations. Of course, everybody entering a joint venture thinks that, well, what I'm bringing to the table is extremely valuable, but it might not be as valuable as you think. Your partner might not be as valuable to your partner, and vice versa. So you've got to have those conversations and figure out, what do we agree is the value that both parties are bringing to the table. And if you agree that you're bringing what you're putting in, whether it's the money you're putting in, it's the work that you're doing, it's the expertise, it's the relationship that you have. Some value might be in your certification, maybe your certification of value, but whatever you're bringing to the table, if you agree that, well, what I'm putting in is 60% of the value, what you're putting in is 40%, then you want to split profits somewhere close to 60-40. You have a better chance of succeeding if the profits match the value. If you don't, and that's a hard, like I say, that's a hard conversation to have sometimes, because a lot of times you might have to tell the other part, or you might have to hear that, hey, what you're putting in really isn't as valuable as you think it is. But if you
We
can
have a
have those
question.
conversations on the front end, then and just the profits proportionate to that, you have a much better chance of your joint venture being successful than if you don't. Did I hear somebody trying to ask a question? Yes.
Yes, we have a question in chat.
Okay. Let me open my chat. Okay,
Is
is all the
all the
information yeah. Yeah, the question is all the information listed in the joint venture agreement, can it be changed over time or on different projects? Well, yes, later on tonight, I'm gonna talk about joint venture agreements. But yeah, you want to put as much, you want to address as many issues as you can in your joint venture agreement. So, probably need a lawyer to help you, to help make sure you cover as much as possible. And yeah, hopefully you'll be able to amend it. You should be able to amend it over time to kind of match. Situations change, and you want to be able to be flexible to the situations as they arise. So, but you want to, in that agreement, and we'll mention this later tonight, you want to make sure you have a provision that allows you to amend the agreement as you adapt to changes in the environment, changes with your client, to changes that come up. Okay. Another thing. So something that, so what characteristics or attributes do successful joint ventures have? Another one is a common understanding of the scope and duration of the joint venture. What do I mean by that? Well, what is the joint venture? So both of you have, or it could be, a joint venture can be more than two. All of the partners to the joint venture have businesses already. You have businesses outside the joint venture. Presumably, you're already in business doing something. So when you go in, you want to have a common understanding of what does the joint venture cover, what's in the joint venture, and what is my business doing, of everything my business does, what is not in the joint venture, what is my private, my company's work that I'm not, that's not a part of the joint venture. Have a clear understanding of the scope of the joint venture, of where the boundaries of the joint venture are as compared to your respective businesses that you have individually. And then also duration is how long does this joint venture last? Is it just for this one project? Is it for a certain amount of time, or is it indefinite or for a longer period of time? Make sure everyone has a clear understanding of that, the boundaries of the joint venture and how long the joint venture will last. Next is a measurable benefit to the customer. You should be able to articulate how this joint venture is helpful to our customer. If the joint venture is all about you making money, okay, yeah, that's fine, you can do that. But you have a better chance of success if it really adds a benefit to your customer and you're able to articulate how the joint venture helps the customer. Then have a mechanism to, and we just talked about this in the question. Thanks, Ms. Aiden, for asking that question. An attribute of successful joint ventures is there needs to be a structure, a mechanism to adapt to changes. You can agree to something on the front end, but as you get into it, you realize, well, this really doesn't work. We need to change for whatever reason. So you need to have a way to adapt when changes come up. How do we adapt? What's the process for us coming together and figuring out something new, how to change what we've agreed on? Next, the joint venture has to be mutually beneficial to all partners. So there has to be a benefit in it to everybody. If the joint venture helps one company, but the other company is, it doesn't really benefit them, you're going to have a hard time. So both companies or all companies involved in joint venture need to, there needs to be a benefit to them, and they need to understand that they have a benefit. Then there needs to be appreciation of that benefit by all partners. I have entered joint ventures before where, where it was based in part of the value that I brought to the table was my certification as an MBE, a minority business enterprise. And yeah, that was valuable. The other party might not have gotten the contract without that, without me bringing that to the table. But the other party didn't really appreciate the value of it. They used it to get the contract, but after we got it, they didn't see any value in the joint venture. So the joint venture was it just wasn't a good deal because they didn't appreciate the value that I brought to the table, or that my firm brought to the table. So you want to make sure that whatever value is there, everybody appreciates it. And then finally, whatever your understandings are about how the joint venture will work, put it in writing, document it, put it in. If it's in writing, you have a better chance. Because if it's not in writing, you're going to have he say, she say. People are going to selectively remember what we talked about. Okay, they're going to remember things that benefit them. And somehow, I don't know how we do it, we as humans do it, but we tend to forget the things that don't work to our benefit. So those, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, that's a list of some of the attributes that I've seen in those joint ventures that are successful. These are things that you want to look for in your joint venture. All right, so now let's talk about selecting a joint venture partner. Now, this is, of course, it's critical. You can't, I mean, it's not advisable for you to just partner with anybody, go do a joint venture with anybody. We just talked about the attributes you need to have, or you need to have the right partner that you can, hit those attributes with. You can't hit them with everybody. So what do you look for in selecting a joint venture partner? Who do you partner with? Well, one thing, of course, to look at is, if you're considering partnering with somebody, look at their reputation. Do some research. What do people think about? What do people in your industry think about them? Do they have a good reputation or a bad reputation? If you partner with them, their reputation will reflect on, is likely to reflect on you. Okay, so you don't want to partner with somebody who has a reputation for half doing their work, or for overcharging clients, or for maybe mistreating their employees or whatever, or for not paying their bills. Okay, so you want to look into their just consider their reputation. Next is their financial strength. Whatever the joint venture is, the joint venture project that you're undertaking is, you want to feel comfortable that they have the financial wherewithal to carry their end of the bar, whatever that is. Some projects don't take a lot, but some projects do take some you got to put some capital in up front. Sometimes you have to have the financial strength to build the client, do all the work and buy all the supplies and build your client, and then you don't get paid till 60 days later. You got to be able to float. So anyway, you just want to know that your partner has the financial strength to do whatever might be required for your joint venture project. Next, you want to look for a partner whose skills and abilities complement yours. Okay, they go along well with whatever skills and abilities your company has. They don't conflict with it, but they complement each other. Then goals and priorities. What are the goals and priorities that company has? Do those goals, that company's goals and priorities, match yours? If one of your priorities is to to do things the right way, to treat your customers fairly at all costs. You don't want to partner with a company that cuts corners and doesn't, all I want to do is get paid. I don't care what the customer thinks about me. They have, their priority is to just make money. And you have other things that you want to do as well. Make sure the goals and priorities match. Company culture. I already talked about the joint venture I did where our employees had solid work skills, coming to work on time, putting in a full day's work. And we partnered with the company whose employees kind of, had freedom to do what they wanted to do and abused that. So you want to make sure that company culture is that it matches yours ideally. And then, history of litigation and liens. You can look that up. That's public information. If it's a company that's been sued a lot, they've had a lot of litigation, or they got a lot of liens against them, that tells you that that company pays that company doesn't handle its business well. So you want to look into that. And then finally, mutual appreciation of value added by both parties. You want a company that's going to appreciate what you bring to the table, and a company where you appreciate what they bring to the table. I have, like I said, I've had early in my career, and I've kind of learned how to avoid that now. But early in my career as a lawyer, I partnered with big firms a lot, a number of times, but most of the times those big firms feel like, well, since we're a big 40, 50, 100 lawyer firm, and you're a small firm with 2 or 3 lawyers, you're a little guy. We don't need you. You're not important. It really was tough. It really was tough partnering with. We brought skills to the table. We were able, but still, just they came in with the idea that, yeah, we're doing you a favor by partnering with you, when that wasn't always the case. So you want a partner that will appreciate what you bring to the table, and a partner who you appreciate what they bring to the table. All right, so get a couple more slides and we'll take a break. Okay, before you enter a joint venture, in the interest of time, I'm gonna kind of zip through this slide. Before you organize your joint venture, there's certain issues that I advise you to talk about on the front end before you get in. Number one, will the joint venture be long-term or for a specific project? What's the duration of the joint venture? Long-term or just for this one project? Talk about the duration. Number two, will the partners continue their separate businesses while the joint venture is going on? And are you going to, and then if so, where's the line between the joint venture and your existing business? Where's the line? Make sure both partners or all the partners have a common understanding there. Next, to what extent will your existing business be integrated into the joint venture? Will your accounting department, your accounting personnel, bookkeeping personnel, be working in a joint venture or not? Will your employees, which of your employees will be? To what extent will pieces of your existing business be involved in the joint venture? Next, this is big. How will decisions be made? In your business, you're used to making your own decisions. Well, so is your joint venture partner. Well, now you're partners, you got to work together. So how will we make decisions? Maybe there'll be some decisions I get to make, and some categories where you get to make the decision. And then there's a third category we got to come together and agree. But figure that out. And then next, what contributions or investments will be made by each partner? Then the sister of that one is how will the income? The first was how much will we invest, what will we put into the joint venture? The next was how will the income be allocated between the partners? And then finally, how will risk and liability be allocated between the partners? Those are all things that you want to talk about before you enter the joint venture. And see where we are here. All right, then okay. So now I'm getting into a joint venture structure. Let me hit just real quickly, hit a couple of slides to give you the background of that. We'll take a break, and then I'll come back and talk about structuring your joint venture. First of all, I got to define what is a joint venture. Well, a joint venture is a business entity formed by 2 or more entities for a single transaction or purpose, or for an isolated enterprise, as opposed to being an ongoing business. So it's 2 businesses coming together, not for an ongoing business, not for something that's going to be ongoing, but it's for a specific purpose. Maybe one project, or maybe one type of product or purpose or enterprise. So that's what it is. So in other words, a joint venture is 2 or more distinct businesses working together for a limited common purpose. And then last slide before we take a break. Okay, there are different types of joint ventures. I'm not going to spend time talking about these different types. I mean, you've heard of teaming agreements, maybe they're trading partners, maybe there's a strategic alliance, but they're different. two businesses coming together for a common purpose is what a joint venture is. How closely they are combined, there's a wide gamut. Okay. You know, if you're trading partners, we just buying and selling from each other, but we're not any closer than that. You know, to maybe a teaming agreement, or maybe even a merger, or a merger or something like that, where you're a lot closer together, you're a lot closer combined. But joint ventures, there's a wide gamut of what a joint venture looks like, and so you so that's so joint ventures don't look just one kind of way. Let's take a break right here, and then we'll come back and talk some more about give you some options on how you structure your joint venture. And Ms. Barner, 10 minute is break 10 minutes, or how long? All right, 10 minutes. We'll come back at 7:15.
We have a break. Okay, what time is it now? It is 7.
I got 7:06.
6.
Is that cool? 7:15. Yeah.
They come back. Yeah, 7:15.
Mr. Bruce, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Mhm.
Okay, this is one of the questions that I have, and I'm not sure if everybody wants to be involved in this or not. When you
Okay.
split the income, okay, say I am partnering with somebody that's bringing in more income, but I
Okay.
have, with me being a minority, and they're not a minority,
Mhm.
I have a relationship with a government entity, and I have a getting, which they may be providing some labor. It would be minimal labor on their end.
Mhm.
How would the minority versus the non-minority play in the factor of the joint venture if we were to do, say, they're going to be financially funded pretty much. So say they get 60% profit, I get 40% profit. How does that affect the minority status?
Oh, I see. So if that's the issue, then you're not getting a majority, so it's not a minority company. So
Okay,
yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation. But if you're trying to get the joint venture itself to be certified, if the joint venture is to be certified, then I think that they would want. I think you have to. You
you
just have
say
to show that you
41,
have
51
control.
and 49
Do what? Yeah,
majority.
51-49 would work. If you're
Okay.
getting less than 50%, then what the certification agency may have a problem with that and may say that it doesn't qualify as
Okay,
as an
that's what I thought, but I was told to ask you.
mm-hmm. Yep. Now that's that gives you some leverage in setting up, how you split the profits, because it has to be, the majority of, 50%, more than 50% of the profits have to go to you to retain your certification. So it gives you some leverage. But still, if the other company feels like they're being slighted, that, hey, we really ought to be getting more than 50%, then, they're going to be a little disgruntled, and you're going to have some issues down the road. So that's just the reality
And
of it.
that's when it could be easily terminated as long as it's not in the middle of a job. This
Right,
is
right.
like getting my feet wet, first joint venture
Yeah.
coming up. And I believe there could be a lot more from this. We've
Yeah.
worked together as as GC, their subcontractor for over 25 years.
Yeah.
So it's not
Mhm.
like we're two companies that don't know each other.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, good. And it's because it's a balancing act. But now if your value is more than just that certification, that helps. You can actually do the work, and you're actually doing a lot of the work. And yeah, they might be putting in more money investing more capital than you, but you're investing some. If you're bringing something to the table beyond just your certification, then that'll probably help them feel better about you getting a majority
Right.
of
And it's
getting more
it's
than half the
certification,
profits.
it's bidding, it's the people I know, the project management of it. I would do all the estimating, everything. They would almost be financially bonding it
Yeah.
is pretty much what I need, bonding and contractor's license.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, good.
Then another question,
Hmm.
because I don't think you're gonna hit this. How does the insurance work with we have two different insurance agents? Does the JV have to have since it's a new entity, a new insurance?
Now, Ms. Aiden, you would ask that question. No, I've dealt that question's come up before, and the answer is it's case by case. So what you have to do is each of the companies needs to go talk to their insurance agent and figure out, well, if I'm doing a joint venture with another company, will my policy cover it? Because it's some policies will, some won't,
Or
and it's a
maybe
case by case basis.
put a rider on it that
Right.
costs less than a new insurance policy.
Yep, yep.
Okay. I think, one more question. You said you'd have to share the risk.
Hmm.
Why would, and now I think I understand it, but and I'm taking a lot of notes to share this with the other company, but why would they want to take on more risk? I know the more risk you take on, the higher the profit. And I guess that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah,
growing your company and the name of it.
yeah, I think that's the reason. People take on more risk so they can get more reward, more profit.
Okay.
Generally, you can't make profit without risk. Um, yep, that's it.
All right.
If
That's
you
perfect.
partner with
Those are my
somebody, you want
questions
them to
so
take,
far.
yep. Yeah, you want your partner to take on risk. They have to see that, okay, there's compensation, there's some profit in it that I can make, and enough profit to make the risk worthwhile.
See, and I have faith in myself, and they have faith in me. They've seen me grow,
Yeah,
but it's one of those, this is different for both of us
yeah, yeah,
because they're family owned. I've been family owned and don't want to risk anything.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, I think that's good. They've seen you grow, then they, have confidence in you. That's good, because if they're doing a joint venture and they feel like they're doing you a favor, that hardly ever works out well.
Okay.
That's been my experience.
Thank you.
Hmm. All right, guys, are we ready to get started? Get started, we shall. Okay. All right, so picking up where we left off, we were talking about joint venture structures. I told you that joint ventures can be, can cover a whole lot of different types of arrangements. Joint venture is a term that covers a lot. But now, your joint venture itself is, can be viewed as a company in and of itself, separate and apart from your, the two previously existing businesses. And so ideally, and I know most people don't go through this process when they form a joint venture, but as a lawyer, it's, ideally you will at least think about it. What type of entity will your joint venture have? And as I'm going through and that is, are you going to set the joint venture itself up as is it going to be a partnership? Is it going to be a corporation, or is it going to be an LLC? Just thinking about that will help you to think through, how certain things work in the joint venture. So I'm going to just skim some of the things to think about as you're selecting between those structures for your joint venture. And these are probably helpful for you and your business too, and not just a joint venture, but you can apply this to your respective businesses. But let's talk. Second, there we go. Did I skip? Oh, here we go. I skipped a slide. Here we go. Let me go through this. So this, the slide you see on your screen talks about some of the things to consider in selecting the type of structure of legal structure you use for your joint venture. There are seven issues that you can look at that will help determine which type of structure you use. One is creation. Some types of entities are easier than others to create. Some require you to file documents with the government. Some you don't have to do anything to create. You just go into business. Some you got to file documents and pay fees. Okay, so if that issue is important to you, that it'd be easy to create, then that'll lead you to certain types of entities of business structures and away from others. The next one is liability. Some types of of business structures give you limited liability. Some give and some don't. With limited liability, that means that if you get sued for something, for anything that happens in the context of your business, the only thing they can take is what belongs to the business. They cannot touch your personal assets. Okay, that's where you have limited liability. But in other types of businesses, you have unlimited liability, meaning that if somebody sues you, not only can they take what belongs to the business, but they can come at you as an owner of the business. So in a joint venture context, if you set it up as a type that has limited liability, if someone sues you, the only thing they can take are the assets that belong to the joint venture. They cannot take the assets that belong to your separate businesses. Okay, but if you set it up as a type of entity that has an unlimited liability, then if you get sued for something in liability, they can also hit your business. Okay, if that's important to you, if having limited liability is important to you, that will drive you towards certain entities. The next issue to consider is taxation. Some types of entities are subject to double taxation. That means when the joint venture makes money, it's got to pay taxes on those dollars. And then when it pays those dollars out to the companies that own it, to the joint venture partners, well, that's income to those companies too. So they end up having to pay dollars on the same dollars that the joint venture already paid taxes on. And then in some types of entities, you don't have that double taxation. So if that's important to you, that'll drive you to or away from certain entities. Next is governance. The next thing to consider in selecting the structure for your business or your joint venture is governance. Some types of entities, governance is management, is control, decision making. How are decisions made? How is the business governed? Some types of entities give you flexibility in how you set up the management structure, the governance structure of your business. and some don't. Some are rigid. They say, no, you have to have a board of directors, or it has to be done this certain way. Then continuity is another thing to look at with some types of business entity. By continuity, I mean, what happens if there is a change in partners? Like if you and another company form a joint venture today, and you form and then maybe 6 months from now, a third company comes along and and you decide you want to bring that third company in as part of the joint venture. What does that do? Well, if you have continuity, that means that you can do it. Even though you bring a new partner in or a partner leaves, the business continues to exist. Some types of entities do not have continuity. That means every time there is a change in partners, either a new partner joins or a partner leaves, then it's not the same business. It's considered to be a new business. It has to get a new employee identification number. Its contracts become null and void because it's a new entity. You got to go sign new contracts again, and it's a problem. So that's something to consider. The next issue to consider in selecting the type of business structure that you use is transferability. With some types of entities, an owner of the business, one of the partners in the joint venture can sell or transfer their interest in the joint venture to somebody else without having to get permission from their partner. And in other types of businesses, a business structure, you first have to get permission from your partner before you can sell or convey your interest in the business to somebody else. So that's something to consider. And then finally, capitalization, with some types of entities are designed to make it attractive to investors, and some are not. And so look, of these 7 objectives, in selecting what type of business you're going to be, a partnership, a LLC, a corporation, you look at these 7 objectives and figure out, well, which ones of these are the most important to me, and then that will drive you toward the type of entity that you want. All right, so there are, in Tennessee recognizes probably 30-something different types of entities. Okay, the most common types are across America are listed here. Partnerships, and there are 2 different kinds of partnerships: general partnerships and limited partnerships. Tonight, I'm only going to talk about general partnerships. So I won't get too deep into this. I won't talk about limited partnerships. Then there's corporations. And there's many different types of corporations, but the 2 most common are C corporations and S corporations, and then there are LLCs. So let me talk about partnerships, general partnerships first, real quickly. What is a partnership? Well, a partnership is an association of 2 or more persons to carry on as co-owners an unincorporated business for profit. Now, every word in that definition is important for it to be a legal partnership. I'm not going to spend time talking about each word and why it's important, but that's the definition of a partnership. But what are the characteristics of a partnership? If you consider, well, first of all, what are the characteristics of a partnership? Just so you know, if your joint venture is structured as a partnership, these are the things that will apply. First of all, for a partnership, for a general partnership, they're easy to create. How do you create them? You do nothing. If you just go into business, you don't have to file anything. You don't have to, sign anything. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to do anything to create a general partnership. Now, that being the case, 98% of all joint ventures are general partnerships, because 98% of joint ventures don't think about, well, how are we going to set this up as an LLC or corporate. They don't even go through that process. It doesn't cross their mind. They just start doing work together. Okay. And if you do work together and you don't file anything to create the entity, then by definition, it is a partnership. Okay. So you are a partnership. 98% of joint ventures are partnerships. So these are the rules that apply. First of all, they have unlimited liability. That means that if you get sued for anything that happens in the context of your partnership, then whoever's suing can get not only what belongs to the joint venture, but they can go to the partners and take and get to their assets too. So you are at risk. And that's true in 98% of partnerships, of joint ventures, because they didn't think about this process and didn't choose a corporation or LLC or some type of entity that had limited liability instead of unlimited liability. Fortunately, I got to the store because I just got through a couple of, about an hour before we started this session, meeting with the client who was having a problem. He's in a joint venture on a real estate development project that's not going well. And so his joint venture partner is threatening to sue and get money back. But fortunately, they structured their joint venture as a limited partnership, and just wait without going into details, because I mean they structured it as an LLC. So without going into detail, I told him your partner can't sue you and your business. The only thing he can sue is the joint venture that he's a part of, because you set it up as an LLC, so you're protected. You don't have to worry about your partner suing you. So it helps to think about these things, and even though 98% of joint ventures are general partnerships, for liability reasons, I think it's better to use one of the other entities. Let me go through this. Since 98% of them are general partnerships, I'm gonna go through all of them on this screen just to let you know. General partnerships have pass-through taxation. That's a good thing. That means that you're not taxed twice. The partners pay taxes. The joint venture doesn't pay any taxes. It doesn't have to pay any taxes. Maybe it has to file a tax return, depending on how, some other things, but it doesn't have to pay anything. So you don't have to pay double taxation. That's good. Governance, from a management, a decision-making perspective, by law, in a general partner, every partner had, or at least in Tennessee, every partner has an equal right to participate in the management of the business. That is, the default rule for partnerships is you have an equal vote. So even if your partner put in 80% of the money and you only put in 20%, and even if, well, no matter who's doing what, by law, every partner has an equal vote. That's the way it is. Now, that's the default rule. If you have an agreement, your joint venture agreement or partnership agreement, that says something different than whatever you have in an agreement, whatever you have in writing is what governs. If you don't have anything in writing, then every partner has an equal vote. Okay. Next is continuity. Partnerships do not have continuity. That means technically, anytime you add a new partner to the joint venture, or a partner leaves the joint venture, then you've started a new business. It's not the same business. That means you got to get you're supposed to go and open new bank accounts. Main thing is your contracts all become null and void because they were with that old business that doesn't exist anymore. Now you've got a new business. So that's, because there was a change in the ownership and you're supposed to go sign a new contract, it just creates headaches. Next is transferability. The default rule is that, in a general partnership, any partner in a general partnership can sell or give away her interest in the partnership anytime they want without the permission of the other partner. Now, remember, in a joint venture, as we talked about earlier, you need to carefully select who you enter the joint venture with. So you've chosen this company for a reason. Now, you don't want to get into a joint venture with them and then they decide, you know what, I'm gonna back out and let this other company take my place. In a general partnership, which is 98% of partnerships, they can do that. They don't have to ask your permission because it's a general partnership. They have the right to back out and let somebody else take their place without your permission. Now, we don't want that to happen. Now, that's the default rule. If the parties agree to something in writing, then what's in writing will govern. But if there's nothing in writing, the default rule is that anybody can give their ownership away to somebody else anytime they want to without getting permission. So you don't want to, you need to put that in writing, that you can't give your ownership interest, your participation in the joint venture to somebody else unless you first get my permission. Okay. And then finally, capitalization in general partnerships. Well, for general partnerships, it's tough to raise capital from anybody other than the partners putting it in out of their own pockets. It's hard to, general partnerships do not attract investors. Why? For a number of reasons, but the main one is they have unlimited liability. If I invest in your general partnership, then because there's unlimited liability, if somebody sues for something that happens in the context of the business, they can sue me because I invested. I'm an investor. I'm an owner. And so I'm not investing my money in that. So most people are not going to invest in a general partnership. So then they're not, you can't get, if you're looking to get capital from somewhere else, you're not going to get investors for a general partnership. So that's 98% of joint ventures because they don't file anything with the Secretary of State's office to create a corporation or an LLC or some other type of entity for their joint venture. They are a general partnership, and these are the rules, the legal rules that apply. So let's talk about a corporation real quick. Let me see something real quick. Okay, a C corporation is I'm not going to, well, yeah, let me just, there are two types of corporations, a C corporation and an S corporation. A C corporation is, an entity that, the legal definition that the Supreme Court came up with way back in the 1800s, I think, no, the 1790s, is a corporation is an entity that is an artificial entity created by law, separate and distinct from its owners. It has certain rights and powers, and it has the capacity to exist perpetually. Now, each one of those parts means something, and I can teach a whole course on each one of those. Not going to do it, but the difference between a C corporation and an S corporation, they're both corporations. The only difference is that, well, for taxation reasons, as you see here in the characteristics of C corps, under taxations, C corporation, which is a basic, a regular corporation, is subject to double taxation. The corporation, being a person in the eyes of the law, has to pay taxes on its income, has to file a tax return and pay taxes on its income. Well, when the owners take the profits out and put it in their pocket, well, that's also considered to be income to the owners. So the owners have to pay taxes on that too. So they're paying taxes on the same dollars that the corporation paid taxes on. That's the only thing I'm gonna talk about for a C corporation, but that's it's a corporation. C corporation is a regular corporation. Now, the IRS has created something called an S corporation for small businesses. Small businesses said, hey, we can't afford to be paying taxes twice. Okay, we want to be able to have to get the other benefits of being a corporation, including limited liability, but we don't, but we're small businesses. We can't afford to be paying taxes twice. So the IRS created a thing called an S corporation. An S corporation, so a corporation can choose to be an S corporation instead of a regular or C corporation, and that way it does not have to pay taxes twice. The qualifications are you have to have fewer than 100 owners. Okay, in a joint venture, usually there's 2 or 3, so that's less than 100. If you're going to be a corporation, be an S corporation, so you don't have to pay taxes twice. The only difference is, otherwise, it's a corporation. It's the same thing as any other corporation. 3 differences. One, for creation, when you create it the same way at the state level, but in addition to filing all the documents and doing the same things you do for a C corporation, you have to file a Form 2553 with the IRS saying that we are a corporation and we elect to be an S corporation, so you only taxing us once and not twice. Okay, you have to file that form. If you don't file that form, you're a C corporation and the IRS will tax you twice. The second difference is the main reason for creating an S corporation, and that is they have pass-through taxation. That is, they're taxed once and not twice like a C corporation. And then thirdly is anybody can be a C corporation, but there are qualifications you have to meet to be an S corporation. The main one is you have to have fewer than 100 owners. Second, another one I want to point out here is, well, all the ones I lifted here are important. So you have to have fewer than 100 owners. The owners must be individuals. So okay, let me take that back. Okay, you cannot be an S corporation. You cannot be an S corporation. I'm sorry, I misspoke. I should have known that before, because one of the requirements to be an S corporation is that all the owners must be individuals or trusts. if you're forming a joint venture, then you're not an individual, you're a business of some type. And so you don't qualify to be an S corporation. If you're going to be a corporation, you have to be a C corporation. So forgive me for spending so much time on that slide. Let me go to the next one. LLCs. Okay. Just for background purposes, LLCs are a recent type of entity, first created in 1978. I think the state of Wyoming created it in 78 to fill a problem. The main two types of businesses before then were partnerships and corporations. Partnerships are great in that they have pass-through taxation. They're not subject to double taxation. But the problem is they have unlimited liability. Conversely, corporations are great in that you get the limited liability. But man, you got to pay taxes twice. They're subject to double taxation. So there really wasn't an entity out there, a structure you could use where you get both limited liability and pass-through taxation. So the state of Wyoming created something called a limited liability company in 1978. And they said, we're going to create this type of entity for businesses in our state where you get both limited liability and pass-through taxation. And they did it. Now all the other states said, wow, look what Wyoming's doing. Isn't that's great, but we don't know what they can't, but the IRS has to approve it. Okay, they can't just say, just because the state of Wyoming says the IRS can't tax them. The IRS doesn't have to listen to them. So we're not, the other states didn't create LLCs. They wanted to know that the IRS was going to approve it. So Wyoming created it in 78. It wasn't until 1983, what was that, 5 years later, the IRS finally came around and said, okay, we won't tax LLC. We won't subject LLCs to double taxation. And so after that, all the states created LLCs. So they're the baby of the bunch of the different types of entities. It's a good one to be because, again, you get both limited liability and pass-through taxation. So the point there is, I went through that just talking in general about the main types of businesses and the qualities that you look at in selecting your business, to tell you that when you form a joint venture, I think most lawyers would tell you it's a good idea to think about how you structure. Don't just go into business. Think about how you structure it, because if you just go into business, you're going to be a general. You're going to be a partnership, and that means you have unlimited liability. There's some benefits to that, but there are also some cons. That's what you get. Think about it. You may not want that. You may decide to be a corporation or an LLC instead. There's some reasons for that. Just something to think about. Something I think is important to think about. All right, so now let me get into the joint venture agreements. As we talked about earlier, whatever your arrangement is with your joint venture partner, is good to put it in writing. First of all, you need to talk about the issues on the front end to the extent you can. The more you talk about the issues on the front end, the better chance you have of success. And then don't just talk about it, put it in writing. Have a joint venture agreement or some type of agreement where you put it in writing. So let me just go through some of the issues that a good joint venture agreement might address. First of all, what contributions or investments will the partners need to make into the joint venture? I mean, you just have an understanding. This is what I'm putting in. This is what you're putting in. Put it in writing. Next is, what other responsibilities will the joint venture partners have? Who's responsible for manufacturing the widgets? Who's responsible for ensuring that we comply with regulations? Who's responsible for payroll for the people that's working in it? Who's handling the books and the accounting? Who's doing the billing? Just know who's responsible for what. Next is allocation of profits and losses. How are we going to divide profits between us? And if we have losses, how are we going to divide that? Next is taxation. If whatever taxes you end up having to pay on your income, well, how are we going to split the responsibility to pay them? Another issue, and I'm going kind of fast here. I wish I had more time to talk about, because this really is the meat of it. The issues. This is just a list of the main issues in a joint venture. I wish I had more time to elaborate on this, but I'm going to hit these to try to make sure I cover everything. But another thing, a good joint venture agreement would talk about is decision making. How will we make decisions? Are there some decisions that I can make on my own without talking to you, my joint venture partner, or that you can make on your own without coming to me? Or what decisions do we have to agree on? Do we have to come together and agree on? Or if I make decisions, what do I have to tell you? So agree to that, put that in writing. Next are accounting procedures. From a bookkeeping perspective, you got to have, figure out how you're going to keep the joint ventures books separate from your individual businesses books. How are you going to do that? Next is billing procedures. You don't want to be in a situation where you do work for a client and then you send a bill to the client, then your joint venture partner sends a bill to them too. Now your client got two different bills, and especially if those two different bills are in different amounts. So you need to talk through that. How are we going to, or maybe your client bills in a different way than, your joint venture partner bills a different way than you do. And so that their bill will end up being for some different amount. Well, get on the same page about who is billing and how you calculate the bills, and then the terms of the bill. Make sure you're on the same page. Next is duration of the joint venture. The agreement should talk about how long the joint venture is going to last. Insurance and bonding. Somebody asked about, that was when we were on the break. Somebody asked about insurance, but presumably the two companies already have insurance in place or have bonding in place. Well, how will that apply to the joint venture? That's going to require conversation with the insurance agent, but ideally you'll talk through that and figure it out and agree on how that's going to look for the joint venture. Next is ownership of assets and work product. For the joint venture is going to buy assets. Well, when the joint venture is over, who gets to keep those assets? Which business gets to keep them? Then you're going to have work product. The things that the product of your work. Well, who gets to keep that once the joint venture is over? You'll just have some agreement on that. Next, another thing, a good joint venture, and again, a joint venture agreement doesn't have to have any of this stuff. You don't even have to have a joint venture agreement. So there's no requirements for it. But if you have a joint venture agreement, a good one, it should probably address these issues. So the next thing that a good joint venture agreement will address is confidentiality and non-disclosure. When you're in a joint venture with another business, they're going to find out things about your business that the public might not know, and you're going to find out things about theirs. So have something in place to make sure that they keep that information confidential and you keep their information confidential. Next, non-solicitation and non-interference. Non-solicitation is soliciting employees. I've seen that happen. Partners work together in a joint venture, and one company decides, you know what, we really like that employee over there. And so they have a secret phone call to their employee and say, hey, come work for us, we'll pay you more money. Okay. So they steal employees. So you might want to consider in your joint venture agreement having a provision that prohibits solicitation of your clients, of your employees. And non-interference, same thing with your customers or suppliers, that says that they will not interfere with your relationship with your customers or your suppliers. Next is public announcements. In a joint venture, you might, your partner might want to do a press release about the joint venture. And you might have a reason to not want the public knowing everything about it, or you're okay with them announcing it, but you want to make sure that it's said in a certain way. Okay, so you can agree that any public announcements about the joint venture that you will both agree on, you'll work together. So one company won't go do it in a public announcement that the other company is not aware of and catch the other company off guard. Might want to consider putting that in your joint venture agreement, a requirement that you get approval before you do a joint venture. Next is distinction of, just something in there that helps you to distinguish between the joint venture business and your existing business. Where are the lines going to be drawn? Just have something in the contract that helps clarify where that line is. Next is coordination of communication with the client or customer. Now, as a lawyer, this is one of my peeves. when I represent a client and we're dealing with the other side, we have to agree which one of us is going to talk to the other side. If I'm as lawyer, if I'm talking to them, you don't need to talk to them ever. I need to be the only person talking to them. Or, I mean, if you want to talk to them, that's fine. But I need to know that because I'm not going to talk to them. I will advise you and you do the talking, because too much confusion comes up when you got two different people talking, because they might say two different things and you put yourself at a disadvantage. And so same thing in a joint venture, who's going to be the one talking to the client, to the customer? Both of you shouldn't. That's a bad idea. Who's going to be the point person for communication? And then, as we said earlier, there will inevitably be disagreements between the joint venture partners, because, like I said, we're human beings. If you got two thinking people, they're going to disagree. If you got one that just follows anything the other one says, maybe not. But if you got two people that think, you're going to disagree eventually over something. It's just going to happen. So in a joint venture, you're going to have disagreements. So have something in there that talks about how you deal with those disagreements. Maybe you'll agree to arbitration or whatever, but how do you deal with those differences? So those are some of the issues that you want to address that a good joint venture agreement will address. This is my last slide. How much time? What time is it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is the last slide. So once your joint venture is formed, there are some issues. Well, once your joint venture is formed, there's some things to think about for how you manage it, how you manage the joint venture once after it's formed. And you ought to think about that, the governance, the management of the joint venture on the front end, and see if you can get on the same page with your joint venture partner. For example, who has the authority to make decisions? Again, we mentioned this earlier. There's some decisions. What decisions do we need to confer with each other on before we make? Or what decisions can we make autonomously? You'll make unilaterally. You'll just agree or just have some understanding about how decisions will be made. And if we come together, what if we don't agree? Do we both have to agree? Or is it, maybe your vote counts 60 and mine counts 40. So we vote and you win every time. How do we count votes if we have to come together? So how will decisions be made? Another thing to think about is who is authorized to sign contracts on behalf of the joint venture, and what's the process? Maybe any contract you sign, maybe both companies have to sign it, or maybe you have to get written permission, authorization from a company before you sign a contract. Maybe you have the authority to sign contracts on your own without conferring them. But whatever it is, talk about that. Who has the authority to sign contracts? How do you get the authority to sign a contract that the joint venture is bound by? Then communication between the partners. There needs to be communication between the joint venture partners. May not have to talk about every little detail, but what things just agree on. Okay, so how, to what extent are we going to communicate with each other? Are we going to give reports to each other? Are we going to talk with each other over certain issues? Are we going to, to what extent are we going to communicate with each other in the joint venture process? Then voting. When you do vote on something, I mentioned this earlier on decision making, but when you do vote on something, how will the votes be counted? Our votes, do we have, each of us has one vote? Are the votes split 60-40 or, some other way? I mean, so how will voting count when you have to vote to make decisions? Access to records. The joint venture is going to have, like we said earlier, that the joint venture ought to have its own set of books that's separate from the individual business's books. Well, who has access to those records? I mean, how do I get access to those records? If I'm a joint venture partner and I want to see the joint venture records, the joint venture's books, do I have access to them, and how do I get access to them? Then another issue that you want to discuss is liability. To what extent are you liable for the actions of your joint venture partner, or vice versa? If they go out and if your joint venture partner, one of their employees goes out driving a truck and runs over and injures somebody and gets sued, is your company bound by that? Or they have, so you want to be clear on to what extent you have liability, and might want to talk about having some indemnification provisions, which says that if the joint venture becomes liable for something that your company did that you were not authorized to do, and I get sued for it, and I become liable for it, you will indemnify me. That is, you will pay me back for whatever I'm out of to that third party that sued us. But talk about liability. What if your partner becomes liable for something you did, or vice versa? And then somebody asked about this earlier. That might have been in the break, but certification. That's you want to if your business is certified as an MBE or certified in some other way, to the extent you want to maintain that certification, you want to talk about that on the front end and make sure you manage the business in a way where you can maintain your certification. So if you are an MBE and you're partnering with a company that's not, to maintain your certification, you might need to set it up. You probably need to set it up in a way where you have more than 50% of the profits or more than 50% of the voting or whatever, but you got to do you got to think about structuring the governance and management of the business in a way that does not violate the standards or the requirements of your MBE certification. So those are some things to think about in managing your joint venture after the joint venture is formed. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my presentation here. This is joint ventures are something that, I think we hit a lot of the main points, but we can drill down on a whole lot of stuff here. And I can probably get a whole course out of it. Certainly I know, because I've done it before. I've done a three-part series before for the MMBC here. But today we hit the main points. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to any questions you might have about joint ventures.
Any questions? No questions. Well, I'm going to reiterate. I know we had one person come in a little later, Miss Dione, about on the September the 11th and 12th, Mr. Jackson will be available in Memphis to be able for you to make up the homework. Any homework, submit homework that you have not turned in. If you have any questions, also to do the makeup sessions that you missed. That's September the 11th, a Wednesday, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Thursday, September the 12th, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. And there will be an email sent to you first thing in the morning with a link to go in and schedule for 30-minute sessions. Each of our participants in the Memphis Bundle Education Program. And that's the Sheraton downtown. He would do these sessions in, and also a preliminary prescriptive plan assessment will be done. And that way you guys are going to tally which top 5 areas you want additional counseling. That's phase 2 of our plan. And I'm supposed to mention our certificate completion program. We will have to get with you on a new date. It will not be the 11th of 12th as I stated before. So we will get back with you. I will inform you, or Cedric, when the exact certificate of completion date, what date that will be with the reception. And right now, that's it. I will email you, and Cedric will email you in the morning. Again, all classes that you missed have to be made up. We will go over the class session taping with you. All homework must be turned in. And we should already have all the client intake forms. And we will give you guys each a call for what is missed to make sure you are able to get your certificate of completion. Any questions?
Yes, excuse me, Miss Beth. This is Melba. I wanted to verify the company for Deani Bowler. I want to make sure our records.
The what?
There's a Deani Bowler on.
Yes.
And what
It's
company?
Property Enterprises Incorporated. We do business as PEI Management Group.
Okay, it's our Property Enterprise. I just wanted to make sure of our records. Property
Oh, yes, you want to take
Enterprise.
the role.
Yes, ma'am. PEI is Property Enterprises Incorporated.
Okay. All right.
You have it, Miss Melba?
I do. I'll make sure it's on Cedric's, is on his,
Okay,
his
I wrote it
information.
down also.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You guys know what classes you missed? Or that you know what homework you have not turned in yet? We will tell you. You will be getting that information from us tomorrow, that you can schedule for those sessions Friday, Monday. I think Tuesday is the last day to do it on your own, 30-minute sessions with Mr. Joe Jackson. But other than that, thank you guys for attending today. This is our last class of the session. Myself and Mr. Joe Jackson and Cedric are happy to have you aboard. This ends the first phase. If you have attended all sessions and sent in all homework, the only thing you can do is schedule a preliminary, right at this point, preliminary prescriptive plan with Joe Jackson, and you can already get ready to start your own individual counseling sessions. That's the phase 2 after this is over. So that will be an email sent out also on regarding the phase 2 part. But the first step is, if you know you missed a class, you need to schedule to make it up and speak with Mr. Jackson on that. Is that clear? Did I make myself clear, or am I confusing people? Everybody got it? Thank you very
Yes, ma'am.
much.
Thank
Look
you.
forward-
Have a good evening.
I'll send you another email. Well, then I think the next time I see you guys probably will be in person. I will see you at the certificate program. Joe will see you guys at the counseling sessions and the preliminary prescriptive assessment. That's phase 2. Okay. Good night.
Thanks,
Be
everybody.
safe.
Great job, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Good night. We'll be in touch with you, Mr. Bruce.
All right.
Bye-bye.